Good, good. So these are just going to be some of my thoughts on the real problem with democracy. Other than, of course, people are using too many caps these days. But anyway, the real problem with democracy is actually an incredibly generic problem of people and populations. So I'm just going to do a little sketch here. It doesn't really matter what it is, but let's just say it's the height of people in populations. And you're going to get a bell-shaped, yes, if we can actually get a nice bell-shaped curve, that's much better. There we go. So you get some sort of bell-shaped curve like this, and it doesn't really matter what it is. By definition, half the people are above average, half the people are below average. It's by definition. Now, let's just say, for sake of argument, that you could characterize people's intelligence like this. IQ is an attempt at doing this. It's got all sorts of problems to it. But it doesn't really matter what it is. Let's just say that you could do it. You would get a curve like this, where half the population are, by definition, subnormal, and half the population are supernormal. The real problem with democracy, and it's intrinsic, there's no way around it, is it's easier to convince someone on this side of the curve to vote for you than someone on this side of the curve. So if you've got limited resources, you're actually better off focusing your stuff here, because it's just obvious. You focus your efforts where it's going to get you the most bang for the buck. That's number one, I think, for me. The biggest problem with democracy. Another one would be, just how much time people have for political arguments. So there will be the average amount of time people have for a political argument, and there'll be people who say, these are the political pundits down here, and these are the people who I've got to take my kids to soccer practice or whatever. And the majority of people just don't have a lot of time to spend on political arguments. The practical upshot of which is almost all political discourse, comes down to sort of 4-word slogans like, change, or lock her up, or whatever, build the wall, doesn't matter what. Almost all political campaigns, they have their slogans, and that's what the majority of people get behind. It's basically a flag to wave. There is no real thought that goes into a lot of this. This generic curve you can apply to all sorts of things. So we could also apply this to... we need my pen. We could apply this to the left and the right. And the real problem is that generally one of the most effective arguments is to pretend that you are this guy in the middle, representing the majority of people, and these would be blood and dirt type, Charlottesville Nazis or whatever. You say, I'm this guy, and everyone on this side is actually sort of representative of these guys, which is... it's kind of a stretch, but the one thing that everyone agrees with is these guys are idiots. Or, you have the same thing on the other side, where you have these extremists over here who would be Antifa or whatever, and you get the guys sitting in the middle saying, I'm your average centrist, and all of these people are actually... whatever, cultural Marxists or whatever. And this is what has a lot of the political discourses are transformed into. Yeah, this mess here. And it's a real problem. And this is one of the reasons why I kind of backed out of the whole left-right thing. I mean, especially when I could see how it was getting really, really polarized. This was about the time of one of the what were they? It was one of the protests at one of the Californian universities, and you had the leftists over here, the Antifa people who were sort of turning up with bike locks to smash people with, and on the other side you had sort of patriots who were also turning up in full body armor with baseball bats. And at this point, you could sort of see where it was going. It was only a matter of time before someone was going to get killed. And at that point, I mean, if they actually had some sort of point to all of this, then what's the utility that was going to come out of any of this? And that's kind of when I was really backing out of the anti-social justice warrior stuff, because it bugs the hell out of me. I see quite a lot of it, particularly when I go to conferences. It's just all over the American universities. There's actually a real problem there. But with discourse like this on the public forum, there's just it's really hard to do anything productive with it. And eventually it was the guys on this side, it's Charlottesville, I think, where, the guy ends up driving his car into a crowd of these guys and kills one of them. And Churchill had a sort of saying for this, other than, what was it? Yeah, the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute discussion with the average voter, just to show his feelings on the subject. And he had another one, which is nothing in this world really changes until someone's actually willing to go and kill someone else over it. And there is another generic property of these curves, which is this argument of sort of criticizing the extremes isn't without basis, in the arguably, once you get over this line where you've got a population that's willing to kill people, now you've got a real problem. And so, I mean, you could also have this as Islam. So over here you've got the most Islam in name only type people, and over here you have the complete extremists, and these are the people willing to kill people. And you can make a pretty decent argument that because there are people who actually believe that they can kill for their religion, and that's the right thing. And all of these people, these people on the extremes wouldn't exist unless there was a whole host of other people who sort of give them an environment to thrive in. And likewise, you can actually sort of make these arguments for left and right. Now, back in the day where Islam was actually sort of killing people, that's when I was actually fairly active in that sort of thing and criticizing Islam. However, one of the reasons that I backed off was because I could see it was getting more and more polarized, and you could sort of see where it was drifting. And with the Christchurch thing, once you've got enough people, in the sort of anti-Islam population who are willing to go and kill people, who's the real problem again? So it's one of those things that criticizing the extremes isn't actually entirely without merit, but the problem is that when it's like it is at the moment, the discourse, once it gets beyond a certain level of polarization, you just get a load of people sort of preaching to the choir. Look at the silly leftists, or look at the evil Nazis. Although it must be said, I mean, these people make infinitely better subject for humorous videos than these guys. Anyway, so those are some of my thoughts on the real problem with democracy.